We now go to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Farenthold, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for being here. While I was home over the Christmas holidays and during this time frame, and after the President made these appointments, I got a great deal of email from my constituents asking, how could you let this happen? How do you fix this? What do you do? I mean, there was a real frustration. I think the American people got, on a common sense basis, that we were not in recess when we were meeting pro forma every 3 days, when we passed very significant legislation in the form of the payroll tax holiday that the President himself was calling for us to pass during these pro forma sessions. So my question to you is, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of whether we were in recess, and I think the American people, anybody with a lick of common sense, gets that we were not in recess. But where do you go from here? What are our options in dealing with these people who are taking taxpayer money, making critical decisions affecting this country, and have bypassed the advice and consent of the Senate, as I think is required by the Constitution? I mean, what are some of our options here? What can we do? It's clear courts don't like to get involved in these separation of powers issues. You answered Mr. Gowdy's question about standing. I mean, where do we go from here? Do we defund the positions? Well, that'll never really get passed unless we can bury it in some other bill. I mean, we can't impeach them, I don't think, because they haven't committed any crimes. Do we amend the Constitution to make this problem not happen? And where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that set of remarks about what you've heard from your constituents. It's very much consistent with what I've heard from my constituents in my state, which is that people are feeling frustrated. They're feeling a sense of powerlessness. They're feeling the sense that power that belongs properly to them, the American people, has been exercised. It's been taken by someone to whom it does not belong. The President has taken power that belongs to the people and is authorized to be exercised only by those duly elected to the United States Senate. And so something does need to be done, and that's why I've drawn the attention to it in recent days that I have. That's why I've said that for my part, in my role as a Senator, although I've cooperated and cooperated happily with this President, even though he's appointed a lot of people with whom I have significant political and philosophical disagreements, I've recognized he is the President. He did, in fact, win an election. Elections have consequences, and I've confirmed most of those people who have come before me. But for me personally, that changes now. My response to that, my duty to the Constitution, based on the oath that I took to it just over a year ago when I took office, I think requires me to stand up for these constitutional prerogatives and to show the President that unless or until he rescinds these unconstitutional appointments and allows them to be considered under regular order in the Senate, he's not going to enjoy the same degree of complete cooperation that he's had. Other responses might include an action in the courts, notwithstanding the doubts surrounding whether Senators have standing independently. Senators can, and I anticipate many will, participate as amici curiae in judicial actions that would be brought by other parties with standing. I think there is some possibility the courts could act. One of the problems is that the courts act relatively slowly, and it seems somewhat unlikely to me that the courts will issue relief in the time that's required, because these recess appointments will be valid only through the end of the year, and if the court acts after that, it's sort of water under the bridge in a sense. Other options would include, as you've suggested, options that might involve defunding these offices. Certainly in the case of the NLRB, we have to remember that the President can't fund anything on his own. He has to rely on Congress. Congress has the power of the purse. And the House of Representatives, in the first instance, holds the power of the purse. That is certainly an option. There's problems that arise out of the fact that the CFPB is embodied within the Federal Reserve Bank. We might want to look at a change in substantive law and the fact that we've given this office to that entity, and we've given funding responsibility to an entity that's not within our funding control. These are the primary levers that we use. In addition to all of those, I think it's important that we make sure that this is considered in the political discussion in the upcoming elections, both presidential and congressional, because we in America have to entrust that those we elect to office, particularly the chief executive officer position, will respect the limitations on their power. Ours is not a government of one. And for this President to pretend otherwise is an insult to the Constitution, and it's an insult to the American people.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.